Welcome back to Brashenomics. A lot of people out there, as we were just talking with Dennis, about, people who have these houses, they're trying to make decisions on whether they should keep them, whether they should do a short sale, whether they should get foreclosed on, all these different ideas they have to try to get back ahead of the game, make good financial decisions for their self and their family. And, Brad Duncan is here, and a lot of people didn't think so much about home equity and these type of matters 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But Brad's actually spent over 20 years representing lenders and others in matters relating to bankruptcy and creditors' rights, and also represents some of the largest lending institutions in the Pacific Northwest. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you, Ben. Glad to be here.
So, Brad, we're hitting on home equity again. People thinking out, I guess, lack of home equity.
That's right.
A
lot of people are struggling and dealing with complicated problems. Absolutely.
And so, from a lender's perspective, I mean, you're kind of on that lender side. We've talked to a lot of people on the real estate side and the little guy. You kind of work for the big guy. What are some ideas for what are people think that I guess the borrowers really need to think about as it comes to dealing with these lenders who maybe they feel like they're just a number?
Well, I think the thing that's most important to folks when they're thinking about dealing with these problems, if they see a problem on the horizon, if things are starting to get tough, and this is true in the individual context, it's true in the commercial context when you're dealing with troubled companies, be proactive. If there's a problem, don't wait for it to be discovered. Bring it to your lender's attention. Most lenders want to resolve problems. They don't want blow-ups. They don't want things to go bad. And if you bring it to a lender's attention, ideally with some information. I mean, if you've got your financial house in order, you've got a troubled situation. But what a lender needs from a borrower to be able to work with the borrower is information. So from a lender's perspective, that's critical.
And so it sounds to me like you're saying that a lender actually would rather know what's coming down the pipeline rather than get blindsided by some of these, people who are unable to make their payments or.
Right. Absolutely. Lenders don't like surprises. And, lenders don't presume that troubled borrowers are out to avoid the issue. Lenders, for the most part, want to work with troubled borrowers. So if you can bring information, if you can get your financial information together, whether you're an individual or a company, and be proactive with the lender, and I can't emphasize how important that is, that you make your financial situation transparent to the lender. If you're a company, get your financial statements together. A lot of small companies don't necessarily keep good books. Get those things together. Bring it proactively to the lender, and you'll have a step up.
And even in that, a lot of people don't keep good books for themselves.
Sure.
And that's
Absolutely.
always an interesting topic that we've talked about here a lot is, a personal balance sheet. So it would seem that it's not till people maybe get into a lot of trouble that they actually start thinking about, well, geez, where is my money going?
Right. Budgeting, keeping financial statements. I mean, who in the course, when we're talking about an individual, keeps a balance sheet? I mean, it's not
just something we say on the show.
Right. I mean, people don't do that. But when you're dealing with a financial problem, particularly if it's a problem of any magnitude, and you have to work with a lender's going to want that, and it's a pain in the backside to sit down and prepare a balance sheet. It's no fun. It's hard to budget.
But it's also it's a little enlightening. I mean, I joke that we just say it on the show, but people do keep QuickBooks. People do these things for themselves, and it kind of allows you to monitor where you are every day or every week or every month or however often you're updating this. And it probably keeps you from getting out of trouble because you don't make some of the mistakes that you may have made if you did know exactly where you were.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's a self-analysis sort of tool, and you can see where the problems are. You can see where the problems originate. And as I say, when you get yourself a little upside down and you have to work with your lender, bringing that information to the lender, being able on your own to identify the problem, and ideally be in a position to work with the lender is tremendously important.
So when somebody can no longer, you work your balance sheet, you stretch the numbers, they don't work. I mean, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about, what options people have or what you see people doing.
Well, let's talk first about individuals. One of the things that's really important is when it happens, people get themselves upside down and they don't know what to do. And there are circumstances, times when the problems can be just so overwhelming people become paralyzed. There are organizations out there that actually work with people, and there are some commercial organizations where you have to pay a fee. Those sorts of places, those opportunities have their own dangers. But there are nonprofits that are out there that are designed to work with people in this circumstance and to help them figure out sort of what they have, work through the financial information, help them develop plans for getting out of the problem. One of them is an organization by the name of Sense here in the Puget Sound area, and that's an acronym for Consumer Education and Training Services. It's a program that's been around 15, 16 years. It was actually organized by a group of lawyers who do bankruptcy work, and it was spearheaded by a woman who's now the chief bankruptcy judge in Seattle, a woman by the name of Karen Overstreet. And it's a tremendous organization and has done credit counseling is the principal objective, and it's done an awful lot of good for a lot of folks over the years.
Do you think that it does a lot of good, but do you think that's enough sometimes?
Well, sometimes some problems are just so pronounced that people have to look to bankruptcy. And
I've heard it's getting harder to just declare bankruptcy now. Is that true or not true?
Well, in 2005, Congress amended the bankruptcy code in some significant ways and modified some of the tests for eligibility for personal bankruptcy filings. It's always easy to file a bankruptcy case. It's become increasingly difficult to make them work, at least on the individual side. But there are circumstances in which it's the only option, and it has to be done.
And so, in this, it's like you had said here, it's a pretty closely regulated environment. You don't just say, I don't want to pay my bills anymore. Yeah. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, bankruptcy is not a panacea. It's not a free pass to the elimination of credit problems. It is a closely regulated environment. Everything that happens in a bankruptcy proceeding happens under the supervision of the court or a trustee, and there are no secrets. And if there are issues that either in an individual or in a commercial context are problematic, they're going to be exposed in bankruptcy. And people ought not have the sense that bankruptcy is file it and forget it.
This is not where you start thinking, I have so much money that the government doesn't know about.
Yeah, that's exactly. You're not going to be able to hide stuff. And folks are, if we've been reading the papers and reading about the travails of Mike Mastro over the last couple of years, there are folks who are heavily incented to figure out where everything is. And not everybody has sort of
They're trying to figure out where he is.
Well, or where the debtor is.
His money or him, one or the other, right?
That's exactly right. But all of the nooks and crannies are fully explored in bankruptcy, so there are no secrets.
And again, we have about a minute left, and again, we're here with Brad Duncan with Davis Wright Tremaine. And so, you say you can always file it, but it doesn't always come out the other end, I guess.
Right.
And so, are lenders wanting to work with people, or does it end up being this, in-court battle?
Well, let's go back to where we started. These things follow a path. There is the problem as it first arises and the way the borrower and the lender handle it at the front end. And if the borrower has made information available to the lender at the front end, you're getting off on the right foot. And if ultimately the thing has to end up in bankruptcy, everything that has preceded the bankruptcy will influence the way the lender approaches the bankruptcy. Yeah, there are times when a lender wants to blow a borrower up in bankruptcy. But if a borrower's doing his or her or its best to come out of the thing and deal with the problem responsibly, most lenders understand that and don't want a bigger problem and are looking to sort of a coordinated win-win resolution to the bankruptcy.
Well, Brad, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pretty amazing fact is you come out of things like the Super Bowl and Madonna and people wanting to get rich quick off of a Facebook IPO. And the reality is it doesn't always work. People do tend to have the best intentions. We've talked about that a lot. People do think they're making the best choices. I don't think anybody wakes up one day and just says, oh, you know what, I'm going to make the worst financial decisions for the next couple of years and end up in bankruptcy. So, Brad, thanks so much for joining us and shedding a little bit of light on that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, when we come back, a lot of people maybe haven't bought a house or haven't been able to sell their house. Maybe they're thinking about doing some remodeling and bring that home that they already live in up to the perfect standards they want. My name's Ben Brash, and we're going to talk about that next with Gordon and Greg. This is Brashenomics. We'll be right back.